Good morning, everybody. It is good to be back live with you all here this morning, and I don't know if we'll go a full 2 hours today, but because we're kind of easing back into things, as you know, I've been away for a couple of weeks, and and I've got some announcements to make this morning about some new things that we're going to be doing with the program. So lots of stuff to get packed in here, and I also wanted to maybe take some time and talk about one of the things that I had wanted to do a video on, and just have not had time to do it. So um, we might jump into that topic if we've got some time later, depending on how things go as far as the chat and the interaction and things like that. So really excited to be back with you guys. Um, if you are watching live, say hello in the chat and let us know where you're watching from. If it's your first time or if it's your first time in a long time, let us know where you're watching from, and we'd love to interact with you and say hello. After all, that's really the whole point of the Dev Mentor Dave YouTube channel, is to provide help and support and encouragement, and we do that mostly through live streams. And although there's a lot of videos, we have been and are in the future going to mostly be a live streaming channel moving forward, and that's part of the announcement that we'll get to here in a little bit. But yeah, so participate, say hello, ask questions. If you do ask a question in the chat, do at DevMentorDave. That'll usually give a little like red box around my name, so it's easier for me to see. Or put some question marks in there. Do something, all caps. I don't know. Do something to make it obvious that you're trying to get my attention, and I'll try to catch that as we go throughout the live stream here this morning. Again, it is morning at my time. And I know many of you watch this from all around the world, actually. So good afternoon, good evening, good early morning, depending on where you are, and where you're watching this from and when you're watching this. So it's good to be back. I was gone for a couple of weeks, and we actually had a planned vacation with the family that had been planned for several months, and just the way everything kind of came together over the last few months here, it was a really, really good, well-timed vacation. I'll put it that way. So hopefully I look a little bit more refreshed. I do feel a little bit more refreshed, although I've been fighting a little bit of a stomach stuff since we've gotten back, so that may cut it short as well this morning. We'll see. But I'm certainly glad to be back. Excited to get back into the Deep Pockets project. Excited to get back into live streaming and some new things that we're going to be talking about this morning as we think about the future of the Dev Mentor Dave YouTube channel, as well as the Discord channel and things like that. So I hope that my being away hasn't caused you to think that I'm done or that I'm gone. I'm still here. I'm back, and I'm looking forward to doing things that we haven't been able to do. Hopefully, a little bit more consistently. So, the vacation came at a really good time. It was interesting. I was looking at my vacation requests, and the application that we use tells us what our utilization is, and that's just based on the number of hours that you've put in, and versus how many should be expected for the time period. And I was at 100.3% utilization, which basically meant for the last 12 months I had put in more work than was required from a hourly standpoint. So it was really good to actually get away, take some time off, and so I appreciate your all's flexibility and willingness to even encourage me while I was gone. Again, there's no health issues or problems or anything like that. Just needed to get away and get some vacation in and relaxation. So we might talk about that later if anybody wants to jump on and chat about vacation, but we'll see. Anyway, if you are watching this, don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're not subscribed, that'll make sure that you get notifications moving forward whenever we go live, whenever I do happen to upload a video again to the channel, or just posts. I'm going to try to get better at posting some more things even as well. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. That'll make sure that you get notified. Hit the bell icon. You get any notifications. If you know me, you know I don't do a ton of stuff throughout the week. You're not going to get tons of notifications from the Dev Mentor Dave YouTube channel. So hopefully that's okay. Because my goal is not to spam you. My goal is to help you. And so hopefully this channel is a help. And hopefully some of the things we're going to do here in the future is going to be a help as well. Don't forget to join the Discord channel if you have not. There should be a link in the description of this live stream. So if you have not joined the Discord channel, we're going to be interacting even more with that in the days to come in conjunction with some of the other things that we're going to be doing here on the channel. So you'll want to make sure you jump in there and participate in that. If you have not joined the Deep Pockets project and you want to be a part of the community development project that we're working on, let me know in the Discord server. I saw somebody was mentioning the other day that they hadn't been able to follow along a whole lot recently on the Deep Pockets project, and we've kind of moved on a good bit. So we might do a live stream next week more around kind of where we're at, especially since I'm going to be adding some more designs and things like that. So we're not going to talk about a whole lot today, but next week we'll kind of jump back into that project. I'm working on some more design updates. So if you happen to go over to the Figma file, you'll probably see me messing around here and there, see some new things starting to come together. Don't mock me too much. Again, I'm not a design expert. We're using the Material UI design kit and the Material UI package for our development too. So don't mock the design too much. It's simple for a reason, because my design skills are simple. If somebody else wants to take it up, feel free. Let me know, and I'll give you some direction on what screens we want to see, and you can do that. But anyway, so I am working on more designs for that. I started doing that a little bit actually while I was on vacation. But I will be doing some more of that this week. So this next Saturday, we're going to have a Deep Pockets specific, get back into our normal mode of communication for Deep Pockets. We'll make sure that we have tickets created, give you guys, get back into the real project flow, because I know that's something that I think is going to be very helpful for many of you. And I want to make sure that we keep that going moving forward. I don't know if you can hear that, but I'm an ice chewer, so I apologize. All right. Last thing, I think, as far as a follow-up, I do have the mugs, and just with everything getting ready for travel and things like that, I did not get a chance to get those out, so I'm going to do everything I can to get those out this week. For those of you who won those in the very simple competition that we had not that long ago. So certainly, if you are a winner and you've not sent me your address, please do that as soon as possible. I think I've got 2 out of 3, but I will double check, and I'll contact you as well, probably through the Discord channel. Just hit me up in a private message in the Discord channel to send that information to me so that I can get your mug to you. I was actually going to have one this morning, but I spent too long not getting coffee ready, and so I don't have coffee for myself this morning, which is terrible. But that means I was going to drink out of one of the cups, because I ended up having to get 12 of them. So there might be more cups along the way, mugs, I should say, along the way, coffee mugs, that might be coming out as prizes. So we'll see. See how that goes. But again, I just want to make sure you guys know I do have those. They are in hand, and I'll probably have one next Saturday, and hopefully they will be sent out by then to those of you who have won them. Okay, so 2 things that I wanted to kind of do this morning. One, I wanted to introduce some new plans and things that we're going to be doing for the channel. But then I also wanted to jump into a topic that I meant to cover a few weeks ago. Thought about doing a video, and I've just been too busy, and we'll kind of talk about that a little later. Mel says, "Go make coffee now. I want to see the cup." All right, tell you what. All right, hang on. I will. You can see all the fun green screen junk that happens when I leave. Fragile. All right. So this is the box. Just this is picture proof, right? Picture proof, so that you guys see I'm not pulling your leg. All right, we got lots of junk in here. Okay, here we go. Good protection. That's the other thing I got to figure out how I'm going to ship these things in a way that they don't get broken. But I'm going to put this down here. All right, so that is the mug. The green screen effect is getting rid of the M. That's awesome. So that's the one side of the mug, and then the other side is just a quick message. Thank you for supporting the Dev Mentor Dave community. So I will be getting these sent out to those of you who won. Bubble wrap is not junk. It's the best entertainment. That's true. Especially for kids, right? Yeah, absolutely. It is entertainment. Here's what we'll do. We'll see if we can do this without making a massive mess. I don't know. Maybe this is sacrilege. I don't know, but we'll see. Here we go. I have not watched this, though, so that might be a bit. Here we go. We'll pretend we're drinking coffee. How's that? Ugh, there's something in it. Ugh. Bad idea. Oh, that was. I think there's cardboard in there. Okay. So, that is the Dev Mentor Dave, and now I'm out of water. Oh well. That's the Dev Mentor Dave coffee mug. So, I'm not going to wash them, so make sure when you get them, you wash them for yourselves so you don't drink little bits of cardboard either. Okay, so they are here. They're now in the way. All right, so just in case you were wondering if I was being honest or not, they have come. All right. All right, so as many of you know, the channel started off over a year ago now, and the goal originally was to do live streams. You have to build a following to some degree in order to get people on here to laugh at you, and to participate in the live stream. So we spent some time doing some initial videos and things like that, and it's just I am not a videographer. Videographer. I don't know. I'm not very good at editing. It takes a very long time to get what I put out there, which is not professional by any stretch of the imagination. And it's not 100% what I want to do. I will still probably do some videos in the future, but my goal is to try to find a way to maximize the amount of time that I have to be a help to those of you who are followers of the channel, those of you who have the ability to jump into live streams and things like that. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to start a new live stream series. It'll be different than our Saturdays. We're going to keep the Saturdays, so don't worry, that one is not going away. We'll still be here generally every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Central United States time. This time has mostly been dedicated to the to the Deep Pockets project, it's mostly been dedicated to training around those things. Relevant to the Deep Pockets project, it's mostly been focused on a lot of Q&A. And I do want the interaction. That's important to me because that's the whole point for me to be on this channel, is to interact with you guys. So I definitely love the interaction, but it's not always very focused. So, which is fine. That's what that last Q&A section is for. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that anything has been bad necessarily, but I want to give you more. Basically, is what I'm trying to get at. I want to give you guys something that's more tangible, but I need to do it in such a way that I am not spending hours and hours and hours a week making videos on specific topics and things like that. So I've been thinking about what can I do from a live stream perspective that will allow me to interact with you all, allow me to give hopefully good information and help along the way along your journey, because again, that's the whole point, is to in as many ways as I can be a mentor to you all who are willing to let me into your phone or computer screen wherever it is that you're watching this from. So I've been trying to think, what can I do from a live stream perspective that can be consistent, but that can also be unique or different every day. Obviously, I've looked at a lot of other channels that are out there and seen the types of content that different people are doing. I know I've been given some suggestions by some of you in the Discord suggestion channels. So, and just thinking through a lot of those things and trying to figure out what might be some good ways to help you all in your journey, but also help you maybe evaluate and examine and think through some of the other information, some of the other voices that are speaking into your journey. I don't think that I know everything. In fact, I know I don't know everything, and I don't think that I'm necessarily the only voice that you should be listening to. But there are a lot of voices out there, and there's a lot of people posting things on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and places like that. And so I wanted to figure out how I could incorporate those things into our conversations on a more regular basis. And most of you know that I am on LinkedIn. You pretty much have to be on LinkedIn in this profession, not YouTube. I mean, in development. So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm not really on much other social media. I do have a personal Facebook account where I keep up with some people, but I'm not. I have a Twitter account for Dev Mentor Dave, and I'm not really using it. I've posted a few things in the past. It just isn't. It's not what I really like from a communication standpoint. I'm definitely not an Instagram person, so you're not going to see me over on Instagram posting, or TikTok or things like that. So I've looked at some of those things to participate in, and it's just not my world. So if I had to, I would jump in there, but that's just not me. So most of my social media interaction from a professional standpoint is on LinkedIn. And so as I was thinking about what we could do to add more content that's helpful for you all, hopefully helpful for you all, and do it in such a way that it's not going to take tons of extra time from me, from a development standpoint, from a shooting standpoint and processing and all that stuff. I came up with an idea to start a new live stream that will be every Tuesday and Thursday. All right. So still got some extra time there to do things for the Deep Pockets project and things like that. But every Tuesday and Thursday, we're going to have a new live stream series that's going to run at 1 p.m. my time. So kind of at a lunchtime hour. Basically, kind of maybe like a lunch and learn type thing. I don't know if you've ever heard that terminology before, but that's kind of the idea, is that it'll be kind of a lunch and learn type hour. All right, and we're gonna keep it to 1 hour because, again, that's in the middle of my workday. I do need to actually work, so but I also should be allowed to take a lunch, and I don't. I want to kind of work into it. It might be something that will expand to other days if we get to where it's a popular thing. But I wanted to provide something at a different time throughout the week that's not an evening, that's not a weekend, but something that hopefully will fit for more people in the midst of their day. Maybe you can take lunch with me as we go through this process. And I even put together just a quick a quick screen for it. There we go. That's our logo for the new live stream series. So it's called LinkedIn Lunch. LinkedIn Lunch. And what does that mean? What are we going to do? Well, for LinkedIn Lunch, basically what we're going to do is we're going to go on LinkedIn and we're going to take a look at some of the different posts that are out there, different articles that people publish and post on there. We're just going to take a look at a lot of the information and the admonition from others that's going out specifically to junior developers. The goal for me is to not just have more content or more videos. Really, the goal for me is to help you walk through the information that you're getting in some of these places, like LinkedIn. And LinkedIn, again, is my my preferred social media, so that will be what we're going to use for that. Now, I do have a new LinkedIn profile, so we're not going to be going through my personal profile, mostly because there might be communications and things like that happen that I don't want to be publishing live on the internet. So don't try to necessarily connect with me on this LinkedIn account. In fact, I'll pull it up here. So this is the new LinkedIn account that I'm going to be using specifically for streaming. Don't If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. And if you do that, send a message with your connection so that so that I know why you're connecting with me. I'll be honest with you, I get a lot of people connecting with me who are trying to connect with me, who are trying to sell me something. And you can usually tell just based off of their job in their profile why they're connecting with you. But this one specifically will be a LinkedIn that I'm probably not going to accept any friendship requests or whatever they're called, network requests, because it's really just going to be for going through content together. Ming says, which LinkedIn were we allowed to connect with you? The one that's linked into the YouTube channel. So if you go to channel here, so two more links. So this is the LinkedIn link that I would have you go to. So if you go to the About section on the YouTube channel, you'll find the link for my personal LinkedIn, which is where I would suggest that you contact me. All right, so over the next couple days, I'm going to be working with this LinkedIn account to follow different people, to follow or save articles and things like that. But one of the reasons why I wanted to use social media is because it's constantly changing, right? It's constantly different voices are coming on, and your feed can change over time. You can get different information from different people. So I wanted to be able to take some time to go through new things all the time. And you know, there are going to be things that we see a lot because there's a lot of similar information, but there are going to be things that I'm going to agree with and expound upon. There's going to be things that I might disagree with, and I might say, hey, this is not the direction that I would go. it might be posts from people. There might be people that along the way I recommend that you follow. Um, there might be people I recommend you don't follow, just based off of the information that they give. But hopefully, at the end of the day, this will be a help to help you kind of learn to walk through and be discerning about the type of information that you're getting from people. And I think it'll give us a good avenue to find content that's helpful to you and talk about content that's helpful to you as we go through this. So it will be 1 hour maximum. There might be days where I come in a little bit late depending on what's happening, and we nudge it over a little bit. I'll try to be as communicative as possible. And I will share all of the information about this both on the YouTube channel in a post as well as in the Discord server so that everybody kind of knows what the plan is moving forward. But this is going to be 1 hour every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 p.m. Central United States time. So we're going to do it as a lunch. Again, the LinkedIn lunch is going to be kind of the title of our new live stream series, and this will be the logo for now, unless somebody else tells me it's horrible and wants to fix it. So this is about as good as it gets with my design chops. So there you go. I probably could have paid somebody to do it, but I'm cheap, so that's what you get. So that's what we'll be doing. We'll be going through LinkedIn posts every Tuesday and Thursday. I do want to invite you to send me people. So whether that's a link in the Discord channel or even just link to them here in the chat or on the video later, certainly feel free to offer people for me to follow on this account. Certainly feel free to send me specific links to posts you want me to comment on or articles that were linked that you want me to comment on. It's not going to be an exclusive LinkedIn thing. I want everything that we look at to come from LinkedIn, so it may link out to other pages or things, websites, things like that, as far as the actual content we end up interacting with. But I want it to be focused on LinkedIn, as that's my primary social media, especially from a development standpoint. And I think in many ways that should be where you get a lot of your networking and social media interaction too. So there you go. Let's see. Oh, we got some more people in here. Ian, good to see you again. Glad to have you on board. He said, I forgot to send a message with my connection request. I sent a message. All right, no problem. Was that today? I haven't looked at it today. If it was in the past, I probably already approved it if I recognized you. But yeah, so I'll take a look and make sure I didn't ignore you. Oh, okay. Yeah, just a minute ago or so. Perfect. That's awesome. So yeah, I will make sure and get that updated and accepted. So that's the big announcement. We're gonna be doing a live stream Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. I've already got that time blocked off on my work calendar. So if there is an issue, some meeting goes long or I've got, something else that pops up, obviously I will make sure and make an announcement. But I also wanted to start with a small commitment of just 2 days a week. I originally thought I'm going to do it Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and then we'll have the live stream on Saturday as well. And Wednesday I wouldn't do it because I typically go in the office on Wednesdays. But as I was thinking about it, I was like, okay, let's pull this back. Let's try to do something that's a little bit more attainable first. So we're going to try it with just Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. Central United States time, and we'll see how it goes. You guys may not like it, and it may be a waste of time, and we'll do something else. But hopefully you guys will find it helpful and encouraging along the way. And again, please send me any people you think I should connect to get them in the feed. If you have specific articles and things you'd like for me to go through and comment on, send me those as well in the Discord channel. I would love to start off with some stuff right out of the gate next Tuesday. So we will start that this coming Tuesday at 1 p.m. So looking forward to that. I know many of you watch this live stream kind of in the early morning hours or the late night hours. So some of this may not work as well for you. It might be better for more people over here in these time zones, but trying to split things up a little bit, find times that work for different people. And then of course, with it being a live stream, it will be recorded, so it'll be available once it's done too. So that is the main announcement that I wanted to go through this morning. Let's see if there's any other questions. All right, looks like everything is good. Yeah, that's a good idea, Ian. We might be able to do something, set something up with somebody from LinkedIn. Probably not from LinkedIn itself, but through LinkedIn. um, yeah, there's definitely opportunities there. We did a live stream not too long ago for church, and I had to figure out again how to get all the sound hooked up to get sound from some other application into the live stream, which was fun. Not exactly the easiest thing to do, but yeah, we can figure something out. And I would like to talk to people and interview people, maybe even just junior devs, and kind of get you guys some FaceTime as well, and talk through some of your journeys. I think that would be cool. There are lots of recruiters, Mel, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to change to a different LinkedIn profile. My feed, I have a lot of different people on my feed, and a lot of them are um, recruiters. Just picked them up over the years. A lot of them are just people with content that really isn't that relevant either. I want to try as much as I can to keep the feed on this one as relevant as possible. So we might be doing some searching, but I'm certainly going to try to connect to a lot of different things that I think will be helpful, that will provide some interesting content for us to discuss. Excuse me, as we go. Ming says 99% is recruiters for you. Yeah, and they are everywhere, man. It's interesting. It seems like every other person on LinkedIn is a recruiter for somebody. Um, and when you try to, the other problem is when you try to search for junior developer content on LinkedIn, you oftentimes um, just get a lot of job postings. So that's the other reason I really would like for you guys to send me anything that you see that you'd like me to comment on, because I probably won't see it in the midst of all the job post things, as I'm trying to focus as if I'm a junior developer um, in the feed here. So anyway, that is the plan moving forward. Starting this Tuesday, we'll have the LinkedIn lunch, and there might be times where I'll actually eat. I don't know. Let's see. Hopefully not, because that would be really distracting. But if haven't eaten anything at that point in the day, which is somewhat often, I might grab a snack or something. So I apologize in advance if you have to watch me eat along along the way as well. So there's nothing lovely about that. But anyway, so that is the plan moving forward. I did want to take a few minutes. I say a few minutes. It'll probably take half an hour. I don't know. We'll see. And hey, Kelly, good to see you. Thanks for jumping in, saying hello. Um, do a mukbang? I don't know what that is, Ming. Is that something I should look up? See, now you're scaring me. Let's see. Did I spell that right? A mukbang is a Korean term that refers to a live streamed or pre recorded video where the host eats large quantities of food while interacting with the audience. I, yeah, I can't even, I am very much overweight and I am very okay with admitting that. Um, but I don't necessarily eat a lot of food at one time. I just eat food that's not good for me. That's the main problem that I have. So I definitely am not going to be doing a mukbang or mukbang, however that's pronounced. That's not happening because I just don't eat a lot of food at the same time. So you will all be saved from that. But thank you for the horrifying pictures um, that are now in my mind, Ming. So that's awesome. I'm glad I was not sharing my screen at the time when I looked that up. Yeah, your warning was a little too late, Mel. I'm sorry. It is horrifying. Thankfully, I didn't see anything that was extremely horrifying, but just the description is that's a bit much for me. I will not be doing that. No worries. It'll probably just be like a chip here and there if that happens. Um, that's awesome. That's great. Okay. You only get to eat on stream if you're eating carrot cake. Well, that will never happen then. So I will never be eating on stream because I am not a carrot cake person. Ugh, ugh, that's nasty. All right. Um, so I wanted to jump into a topic this morning that I've been thinking a lot about. Um, Actually, I've thought about it a lot over many years, quite frankly. But I wanted to just touch a little bit on this topic of leaving well, and especially as a junior developer, especially if you are not even in a job yet where you're doing this full time. This might seem like a weird topic to jump into for junior developers, but it's a topic that I think is not just applicable to development and to being a junior developer and getting another job as a junior developer. I think it's applicable really to everybody. At least some of the principles that I wanted to walk through. I've had people leave jobs that I was working at, and I've been able to see the different ways that people have handled that and interacted with that. I've left jobs hopefully well every time, but that's the goal anyways. Hopefully I followed my own advice. um, but there are just some things that I've noticed that I don't know if it's generational things. I don't know if it's just differences in how people think about employment today versus how they used to think about employment. Um, but I want to just kind of walk through, especially when you're leaving a job, um, some things that maybe you haven't thought about, um, in ways that will help you do that well. The reality is that we do live in a large world, right? We've got, is it 8 billion people now? Let me look it up. We have a lot of billions of people. Almost. We're almost there. 7.951 billion. All right. So we've got almost 8 billion people in the world, and it can be really easy to think that it doesn't matter how you leave a job because there are thousands of jobs out there. But especially when you think about the tech world and specifically the development world, those numbers shrink down very, very quickly. Especially when you think about the tech or development world in your area. Especially if you're going to be looking for a job in your area with a company in your area. Now, one nice thing about the internet is we do have the ability to get jobs all over the world, but the vast majority of people still are employed by somebody who's fairly local to them. And when you get down to that level of locality and number of people, it gets very small very quickly. Um, there are some major names in development here in the Kansas City area that people pretty much know. They have reputations as companies in the Kansas City area among developers. But it is amazing to me how, without even trying, you can run into the same um, people from one job to the next. I think I've mentioned before that I've got a buddy who I've worked with at three different companies. And I may have mentioned one of them to him, um, but I don't think I was necessarily that influential on getting him to even apply. Um, so that just hopefully gives you an idea of how small the community is for development, even in a decent sized city like Kansas City, Missouri, or Kansas. Um, but you have to keep in mind that 7.9 billion number shrinks down very quickly, and so the way that you leave a job has a big impact on your hireability, has a big impact on your reputation, um, with other developers, with companies in the future, and I think people know that to some degree, but in the heat of the moment, um, when you're leaving, whether that's because you're being let go, or more particularly to this conversation, when you've decided to move on to usually go to another company, um, that transition can be pretty rough. And a lot of that really is dependent on you, the person who's leaving. Um, Usually, when you leave, it's going to be a shock. It's going to be something that um, you probably did on the side that you kept hidden. Um, it's going to catch people off guard, whether that's your employer or whether that's coworkers that we just don't talk publicly, hopefully, about leaving the company that we're working for. Um, so so there is an impact that is made when we make that announcement that we're going to be leaving the company that we're working for. And this is why, even though obviously we would talk mostly from a tech standpoint, from a development standpoint, this really is applicable to any job. So whether you have a full-time development job right now and you're maybe looking for something else, or you will be in the future, or you're hoping to get into that new job and you're currently working in a different industry doing something else, I just want to walk through a few notes that I have, um, that I hope will at least make you think through some things that potentially you haven't thought about before, regarding the process of leaving well, and the importance of leaving well, not just for your reputation, but even for the company that you're leaving to do things in a way that's going to be beneficial for them. Because at the end of the day, you never know where you're going to end up. And 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, you could end up with an opportunity to come back to the company that you left, and how you leave impacts that opportunity. Um, we don't often think that will happen because typically we're leaving for a reason, right? Whether we're leaving because um, of conflict or issues there at the company, or we're leaving for more pay, knowing that this company probably they might match it, but you don't necessarily want to take a match all the time. Um, so people leave jobs for specific reasons, and so we don't always think we're going to come back. And so since we don't think we're going to come back, we don't always take the opportunity to do things as well as we can. But the reality is, if you do things well, then if the opportunity or the need arises for you to come back, it's a much smoother transition along the way. So let's jump in. I know there's a little bit of discussion here. Let me run through the comments real quickly, and then I'll give you my my leaving well advice. All right, let's see. Meaning you got a job? Oh, you got let go. That's right. Sorry, my bad. I read that wrong. um, let's see. Do we consider the way you leave a project to be the same as leaving a job? It depends on what you mean. So yeah, Ian's right. It is different. Um, it kind of depends. I think some of these are going to be similar. um, and universal. It depends on whether you're talking about a group project like Deep Pockets or something like that, or if you're talking about doing side work for as freelancer. That would be a project, in my opinion. That would be different because you definitely want to leave that in a different way than you would leave even a project with other people that's more of an open source thing too. So I am specifically referencing leaving a job where you have an employer. I think some of these things could be applicable to a freelance opportunity, but again, that's going to be a more sticky situation, and have different, what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to have different ramifications on your interaction with that person. Um, Most people know that leaving a job is not necessarily a personal thing. It's a business decision for your family, or for your mental health or whatever it is, right? So while it can be disappointing and hurt, especially if you're a good employee, for you to leave. Um, Most logical people are going to understand in the end, and they're going to be happy for you, more than they are disgruntled, and especially they'll be happier for you if you follow some of this advice. I think so. Um, yeah, absolutely. Try to leave a job on good terms. So that's what we're going to talk about. Um, that is a personal thing for your mental health, absolutely. Um, but what I mean is, it's not necessarily a conflict issue. Okay, so let's dive in. So the first thing that I would recommend is be a professional resigner. All right, so it's about being professional. All right, I'm going to say that word probably many times. All right, but be a professional resigner. What do I mean by that? Not like I have the right way to do it. When you give your resignation, do everything that you can to do it in a professional manner. I have seen people at multiple jobs um, hand in their resignation, and sometimes I've seen them basically quit on the spot. And sometimes I've seen them give a 1 week notice, usually a 2 week notice. Um, in the United States is a typical expected amount of time. So being professional means that you do so, and you give your resignation in such a way that it is, the time frame is reasonable, right? You need to give a reasonable time frame. When you are leaving a company, you are creating a void. Um, and I understand that there may be reasons why you're leaving the company that you don't care. You don't care whether they succeed or not. I get that, but again, you never know what the future is going to hold. So leave professionally. Give at least a 2 weeks notice if you possibly can. And let me say this: if you're looking for a job and you have received a an offer and accepted that offer, and that company pushes you to give less than a 2 weeks notice, or whatever is typical in your country, if that company is pushing you to do less, I would be concerned. Is it the end of the world? No. It could be that they just really need you and they're in a tight bind, and so the earlier the better. Um, but if they're really pushing you to treat your current company disrespectfully and unprofessionally, um, then that to me is a little bit of a red flag. I would probably have a conversation with them and just explain that what they're pushing for is unprofessional, and I would maybe even tell them that that's concerning, that they would want you to act in an unprofessional manner. So make sure you give a reasonable time frame. Now, I'm not saying you have to give them a month, right? If you've got that flexibility and you want to do that, That's great. I mean, that's a good way to put you in good graces with the company. But certainly, I don't think you need to go above and beyond what is generally accepted, which again, here is 2 weeks notice. You don't necessarily need to go above and beyond that, but you need to be reasonable in the time frame that you give. Especially if you work in a small company where you know they're going to have to backfill your role, they're going to have to hire somebody. It takes time to hire people. It takes time to go through resumes. It takes time to interview people. The likelihood of getting somebody in within a week's time and getting them ramped up on information is unlikely for most companies. Even if you have a list of people that have already applied recently, it's still very unlikely. So give at least a 2 weeks notice. That is the professional thing to do. And again, it's going to put you, it's going to give you a better relationship with that former employer. Another part of being professional is the demeanor in which you give that resignation. I typically recommend, if possible, now there might be jobs that you're working that this is not possible, but if possible, I still recommend writing out and printing out and going into the office and handing your resignation to your employer. That does a couple of things. One, it gives you time to think about any information you would want to talk about at that time, because again, you're going to shock your employer when you do this. They're going to be caught off guard, and there's going to be questions that they might ask right away, they might not ask right away. But when you just send an email or a text, even worse, even if it's written well, it's very impersonal. It's very stark, and it feels very much like you're holding your hand, up. You're keeping your distance, and I think to some degree you have to keep your distance from a professional standpoint. That's part of being professional in that process. But you can do that through a physical note. And again, does it have to be a physical note? No, but that creates an opportunity for you to get in front of them, for you to give them a peaceful and calm presence and demeanor as you're handing in this resignation, potentially explaining what your plans are. What I would prefer to do is to hand in my resignation letter and kind of talk through what it is that I've said in the letter as well, to give them some time to take it all in, and give them some time to maybe even think of a question or two if they have any that pop in their heads. That's being professional. It's doing it in a way where you can provide a demeanor. Maybe you can't do that because the job that you're in is remote. I would set up, instead of sending an email, I would set up a time to have a video call. If you can't do a video call, do it a phone call. The point is try to get in front of that person as much as you can to display a professional demeanor. When you get an email, it is so easy or a text, it is so easy to read into emails and texts attitudes, inflection, and especially when you're caught off guard because of the way that somebody's leaving you that you were expecting to be there. It's just human nature to kind of add in snarkiness or anger or frustration or things that you might not actually show if you're face to face with them going through the process. So if you have to do it over video call, I would recommend doing the video call before you do you send an email, and just let them know that you're going to send the email with all the information that you talked about, and even have it ready to go. Use the email as your talking points if you need to, but send it right away so that they have that information. But part of being professional is not just giving them the time frame, it's also having a proper demeanor, having a calm demeanor, having a demeanor that treats the interaction professionally, not out of anger or frustration, or doesn't go in there and just start blaming everybody, things like that. So that's part of being professional. And I think another part of being professional is, if the opportunity is given, and depending on your relationship with your boss, even if they don't ask, you can probably do this, but be willing to give constructive feedback, especially if they ask why you're leaving, and there are things that you think they could grow, that they could learn as a company and get better for future employees. This is hard because, again, it goes back to the demeanor thing. You've got to be able to stay professional. And a lot of times when you're dealing with things that you dislike or things that should change, it can be easy to get kind of worked up. So again, if you do this, I think it's very helpful and professional to do it. But make sure you do it with the right demeanor. Make sure that you've thought through the things that you would say, and so that you can communicate that in a way that's not going to be offensive, that's not going to be inflammatory. You want to think through those things ahead of time so that you have a plan if the opportunity is provided. And maybe it's not. I'll be honest with you. I have left jobs where I didn't have anything that was necessarily bad or wrong. I just got a better opportunity. And that may be the only talking point that you have, and that's perfectly fine. You don't have to tell them everything, all the reasons why you're leaving or anything like that. But you need to do it professionally. And doing it professionally means that you do it with a visible demeanor that they can see, that they can interact with, that you do that in a way that's going to not throw them under the bus from a time frame standpoint. And you need to do that in a way that's going to provide helpful feedback if they ask for it. I'll be honest with you, most of the companies I've worked for have not asked for feedback, so I would not necessarily expect that. Let's be honest, we all typically think we know what we're doing, and we're doing it the right way. When people leave, we're shocked. So, but if they do ask for feedback, be ready to give them some, or just tell them that there's nothing specific and you're just moving on to a better opportunity. But keep it professional. Be a professional resigner. Have that interaction be professional. Yeah, Ian, sometimes human resources will do an exit interview. I've never had it. So it just depends on where you're at and the type of companies you're working for. But yeah, I've unfortunately never. I would have liked to have had some exit interviews at places, but just because for me as an employee, my goal is to help that company succeed. And if I'm leaving that company, then there's a reason why I feel like I can't help that company succeed. And so if they give me opportunity to provide feedback, I want to provide that feedback because I still want them to be successful, even though they may not be my company. More than likely, I've built relationships there that I want them to be successful. And I want their company to be successful. Unless the company just really goes off the rails and does something dumb that I don't think they should be doing. But yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Mel says, is it normal for the person leaving to train the person they get in to replace you, or is this too expensive for companies? In my experience, that mostly depends on how they're going to backfill your role, or if they're going to backfill your role. If they're not going to hire somebody to take your place, they're just going to move your work over to other people who are already there. Typically, you will have some sort of training. And that's actually the next point that I'm going to get into here. But if it's a higher situation, that's not necessarily going to happen. That did happen at one job that I left, and it was helpful. It was unique. I've never seen a company move that quickly, but I was also involved in kind of in the process of interviewing my replacement and things like that too. So it was a little bit different dynamic than a lot of people are gonna face in that process. But yeah, so the second point outside of being a professional resigner is be a helpful transitioner, right? So be a professional resigner, be a helpful transitioner. And part of being a helpful transitioner is being willing to go through that process of writing documentation, of sitting down with people and training them on what you do if you're doing it with somebody who's already there at the company, even if they do hire somebody, especially if you're leaving, like, be professional in how you leave, not just in the resignation process but in the transition process. Be helpful. Again, our goal is to leave the company in such a way that they would love to have us back. That there would be no reason that they would want us, that they would think about, I don't know if I really want to hire Dave again. Um, I I want to leave a company in such a way that they enjoyed working with me. They found me to be an excellent employee, and they would take me back in a heartbeat. There have been people who left the company that I work for now that we would take back in a heartbeat because they did it well, they did it professionally. Um, at many jobs, there are people who don't do that well. That maybe from a skill set standpoint, we'd love to have them back, but they left in ways that just were not very good. And so it's important how you leave, not just in the way that you tell them that you're leaving, but in the things that you do in that time period, in that 2 week period or whatever time period it is that you have. And that is, for me, that's being a helpful transitioner. That's what I mean by that is take the initiative. Take the initiative to be helpful in getting things off of your plate, in making sure that people have things to be able to cover the responsibilities that you had, information, documentation, training. You should instigate that. I have worked with people who have left jobs, and their last bit of time, it was almost like a ghost town. It was almost like you could literally hear the crickets in communication. You just didn't hear from it. It was like they just kind of went silent for a week or two. And while they may have been a good employee, that doesn't help the process, because you have to remember, you're leaving a company and everybody else already has a job. And so if you are leaving and they're not filling your role, or they're not doing it right away, you don't have the opportunity to train a replacement. What you're actually doing is adding more work for more people. And they may be able to spread that out, or they may be able to take it on, or however that works out. That's not necessarily your concern. And I'm not saying you should feel bad about it, but I think it's something that you should think about when you're going through those last couple of weeks of transition. You should take the initiative. You should look for ways to provide a benefit to this company so that they can move forward without you. Again, that's just being professional. That's being a helpful transitioner. Look for ways to help them continue to be successful. Documentation is usually the biggest thing, whether that's documentation of your code base that you're working on, or the project that you're working on. Going through and seeing what things that you might have access to that others need access to, documenting the process for that access. That is a huge one, especially in our industry. Documentation is really, really important. So you want to make sure that you're taking the initiative to provide the documentation. I would rather have somebody who takes the initiative and gives me 2 weeks notice, and tells me after 1 week that they have put all of this stuff together. They're available to train anybody that needs to be trained. Like, I would rather have that and have them have nothing to do for their second week than have to constantly ping them every day and be like, hey, did you finish up that last ticket that we need you to do before you leave? hey, did you finish that documentation? The documentation's important. Work is important. Make sure that if you're working on specific projects or tickets, that you wrap up the things that you're doing. It is so frustrating when someone, especially when someone says that they've completed something and they haven't completed it, and then they leave the company. But when somebody is ghosting you and they're just not really very communicative over those last couple of weeks, and then you find out they didn't really get anything done, especially if you had work for them. Part of transitioning helpfully is helping with the workload until you're done. Taking care of the things that you can take care of, and finishing what you can finish in that process. That is being a professional. That is, I mean, they are still paying you to be working. So if you are slacking off and if you're not doing the job during that time period where you've given your resignation notice, that you're just being, you're being a bad employee, and B, you're not being helpful in the transition along the way. You're not being professional. So make sure that you're putting in the time that they need you to put in. Now, theoretically, you shouldn't have to put in overtime um, when you've given your resignation, especially if you're hourly. They typically don't want you to do that. They don't want to pay you any more than they have to. And sometimes they may just have you go right away. That's a reality, right? And if that happens, be prepared for that. If that happens, again, have a professional demeanor in that process. Have a professional demeanor when you're packing up your things. If you have a job at a specific location, be professional in your transition when you're logging out of systems and things like that. Make sure that you provide information about anything that you're using that they need. You'd be amazed how many times developers will use applications or will use tools that they haven't necessarily told anybody about. And all of a sudden somebody takes over this project and they don't know how to log into this, or they don't know what this application is or what this tool is, and there's no documentation for it. So my rule of thumb is transition in such a way that you would like someone to transition to you. I mean, it goes back to the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So transition as if you're the one getting hired to take that person's role. Transition in that way, so that you give them everything that they need to be successful doing what it is that you did. Ian says, if the company you're leaving wants your help past the 2 weeks and you have the time, you might offer to help out on a contract basis for more money than they were paying you. Absolutely. In fact, when I first got into development, I think I've mentioned this before on my big long journey video, but when I first got into development, I left a company, and the job that I was doing was not a very time intensive job. It only took me a couple hours a day typically to do. And they were actually at the time looking to transition to some other software that was supposed to automate some of that process anyway. And so they weren't really wanting to backfill 2-3 hours worth of work a day. And I offered, I said, hey, if you're fine with me using a VPN and logging into the system so that I can do these things, let me know. Of course, I wasn't smart enough back then to charge them more. but we just took what I was making, hourly, and I did that. I did that for, I think, 6 months roughly, if I remember correctly. It was a long time. I would get up, go into my closet at home, and I would log on and do a couple hours worth of work for them, and then I'd theoretically work for my brother in the projects that I was on for him. But yeah, I mean, that can be another opportunity if they're going to be in a tough spot. Another professional thing to do is offer to help if you have the time. Now, if you know you're going to a full-time job and you're going to have travel that you didn't have before, or just longer travel, if it doesn't work out for you, don't offer it. All right. Sometimes they'll ask if they feel like they're in a bind, but sometimes they won't even think about it either. So if that's something that you think you will have time for and you're willing to do that, again, because you're leaving the company well, a lot of times companies will keep you on contract for, you know, 2, 3, 6 months, just to help with a transition or to help get, maybe you have a specific feature or project that you're working on, and they just don't feel comfortable trying to transition it to somebody else, but they'll let you do it kind of on the side. So there's always opportunities if you're willing to do that and able to do that. You never know what the company might say, and especially if you're doing things professionally on the way out, those opportunities are much more likely to be available to you. So yeah, absolutely, good call, Ian. Um, that's a great point. Absolutely, that's part of being that helpful transitioner, right? Ian also says if there's not enough time to transition everything, ask your manager what you should focus on and what their priorities are in transition. Yeah, absolutely, great advice. Um, Most of what I've seen they'll tell you because they do want specific things. But yeah, especially again, you're catching people off guard. Um, Maybe don't ask them the first day, but because typically people resign on Fridays. From what I've seen, people typically get fired on Fridays and resign on Fridays for the same reason, and that reason is so that the other people on the other side of that process can have some time to cool down. So that might be another tip for you. But yeah, definitely, maybe the next day as you're putting together your plan, maybe tell them what your plan is. Ask them if there's anything that they think is more important, higher priority. It may be that they worry less about documentation and they just need you to get 3 tickets done. Like that may be the most important thing to them. So definitely ask them what is most important, and get their input on that. Um, if you can do more things than are important to them, do that. Again, leave them in a better place. It's kind of like, we tell our kids when we go visit somebody's house, and they go downstairs to play and get toys out and stuff like that. Like, you always tell people, leave their house better than you found it. Right now, hopefully they did a good job cleaning, and we're not doing a deep clean here, right? But the idea is treat other people well, right? So leave the job better than you found it, as you're transitioning. So if you have the ability to increase your helpfulness, then do that. But definitely make sure you find out what's going to work best for them and their priorities along the way. So good points there, Ian. That's a great question, Mel. Should you give the company a chance to keep you? For example, you might want to leave because you need more money, and a company might offer to supply that if you stay. This is a can of worms. um, so in that instance, my question would be, why didn't you ask them for more money? And that's a hard question to answer because I'll be honest with you, most people, most devs that I know are not necessarily bold. I'll put it that way. Um, there are some devs that I've worked with that are very straightforward when it comes to what they want, but a lot of us are happy to have a job, and then um, we don't necessarily want confrontation, and we fear that asking for a raise will create a weird environment, an uncomfortable environment. Um, I think if money is the problem, you need to be okay with being uncomfortable and have the conversation. If you're leaving a company for better money and you haven't had that conversation, there should only be one reason why that happens. And that reason is that company found you and made you an offer that you couldn't refuse, right? That actually happened to me at my current position. Um, there were some things that I was at least interested in looking, but I hadn't really started a job search. Um, and they were around not necessarily what I was making, but they were around kind of how the pay structure worked and things like that. Um, and I had mentioned to people there that, it wasn't really my favorite thing. So it wasn't a secret necessarily that I didn't care for it, but it was just the way that they did their pay and had done for years. So it's not something they're going to change for me, right? Um, but when I came over to the job that I'm currently working at, I was contacted via LinkedIn. I was contacted by my boss, and through some interaction, basically he said, hey, at least interview, see if it's interesting. So I did, and I had already had some interest in this company in years past, and so I told them what I would need to make, which was more than I was making, and they made me an offer higher than that. So that is about the only situation where you would leave a job largely because of pay, um, and for me, payment structure and process there, um, without talking to the company that you currently work for. Generally, if you're in a place where you need more income, you need to be okay with the uncomfortable conversation of asking for a raise. And when you ask for a raise, they're very likely going to push back. They may have a certain process where they say, "Hey, I can give you this much," and that's it, and it may not be enough. And you can have that conversation with them. But generally, if you're leaving a company because they can't pay you what you need to make, hopefully you've already had that conversation with them, and so they're typically not going to make you another offer. The reason why companies make offers that match other companies is because it takes a lot of time and energy and cost to replace somebody, but B, if that is the only reason that you've given, for a lot of companies that's an easy fix. They just pay you what you want. Again, not every company can do that financially, but for a lot of companies that's doable if they want to keep the person. So I would say if that's the reason why you're leaving and you haven't had that conversation, that to me is part of leaving well. Before you start looking, at least make it clear that you need higher pay so that it's not as much of a off the wall reality when you give them that resignation letter. They'll probably have a pretty good idea why you're resigning at that point. And, asking for a raise is not fun. It's scary. You never know what they're going to do. I've never had a job fire me because I asked for a raise. I've never heard of anyone getting fired because they asked for a raise because the company was scared they were going to leave. I think most companies just kind of see it as, hey, you're going to work for what we're going to pay you, or you're not. So there you go. So I would say don't be afraid of asking for a raise, and be ready to explain why you think you deserve it. Sometimes you just deserve a raise because you've been working for a company for X period of time and you've produced for them and you've increased their ability to be successful. And if you can give good reasons why that is, they might be more likely to give you a raise, and then you don't have to look for another job. So let's see. Ian says, I've known folks who've accepted the additional money that the current company offered. It's definitely a double-edged sword. Absolutely. Again, it can happen. So the other problem with that, which I meant to get to, I told you this is going to take long. The other problem with that is if you're being wise, when you put in your resignation for your company, you've already accepted an offer and have a start date at another company. So when your current employer offers to match or even exceed what that other company has offered you, you've already made a commitment to that other company. That's a very sticky situation to be in, because now you've got a company that you haven't worked for, but you've made a commitment to, And if you accept this other offer, you've got to rescind your acceptance to that company. Is that as big of a relationship issue? No. Um, but it is still something that, that recruiter that you're dealing with, or that HR department that you're dealing with, they may remember it, and they may put a note in your file, and there may be a reason later on where you apply and they're not interested. Even if it's a perfect match and you're the best candidate for it, they may not be interested because of that choice to go back to your current company and rescind your acceptance of their offer. So there's a couple of dynamics in that situation, which is why I would typically recommend not accepting the offer from your current employer unless there is just a dramatic change, whether it's a raise and a change in responsibilities, other issues that get fixed, which is very rare in that short of a period of time. Unless there's something like that, I would typically just decline it. And for me, it would be more around being as professional as I can be for both sides. Um, is that going to be perfect for everybody? Nope, and that's totally fine. You've got to do what you think is best for you. That would be my leaning, though. I feel like that's the most professional way to handle that specific scenario. Yeah, Ian says you're only on the hook with the other company if you've accepted the offer letter. They may have only provided you with an offer letter. I would personally not resign in that instance. So for me, I want job security, right? And if somebody's given you an offer letter, they can rescind the offer letter. Um, Honestly, they can still rescind the offer even after you've accepted it and have a start date. But typically, if you've accepted, they've confirmed your acceptance, they've given you a start date. Typically, if that happens, it's pretty rare to be cut off unless some drastic news comes down the pike about you or about them and issues internally, things like that. So uh, that's why I typically, if I'm going to resign, I want to know when I'm starting. I want everything to be confirmed, paperwork signed as much as can be before that first day. Like I want as many assurances that that job is in place before I give my resignation. That's me. I don't think it's a requirement. I think it's wise, but that's my take on that. So that's why, again, for me, the professional thing is to go with what the plan was, unless there's some just crazy circumstance that I never would have considered that comes about. uh, so yeah, for me, Ian, that wouldn't really be much of a problem or much of a reality unless they just took it even after the confirmations they let me go before they hired me. I can't think of a right term for that interaction. Mel says, I've heard most companies would prefer employees to ask. I assume you're talking about pay raises. But by the time most people ask, it's already too late for them to stay, either because they're so stressed out or because they already took a job. Yeah, and again, so that's like, whose fault is that, right? Partial fault on the company for not having a process in place that makes people feel wanted and desirable. But it's also on you. Like, waiting too long is up to you. You can either do it early, you can do it on time, or you can wait too long. Um, so be willing to be uncomfortable. Have the conversation. The first time I ever asked for a raise, I I was scared to death. I walked in and it was a raise that I needed. I had to make a certain amount of money to pay the bills that I had and to keep my family sustained. I was not raking in dough. All right. So and that really was the crux of the conversation. It was, look, here's the deal. I need to make this much money. Is that something that you all can do? And if it's not something that you all can do, I'll do what I can to try to make up what I need. But that's the reality of my situation, right? It's hard to say that to a person. It's easy to say that to a camera or to a mirror, but it's hard to say that to a person that has the authority to let you go. There's some fear there, and I get that. It's uncomfortable, but do it. Just do it, and you never know what'll happen. So sometimes though, companies are proactive. They have a plan and how they do it, and hopefully they do. And if they don't, encourage them to get a plan. All right. So be a professional resigner, be a helpful transitioner. And the third thing that I wanted to bring out is just be an excellent employee. You do not realize, many people do not realize, I should say, the impact on how you leave of simply being a good employee now. Sometimes people leave companies and you don't even realize they're gone. Sometimes people leave companies and you're glad they're gone. Because they were somebody who was always complaining. They were somebody who was always confrontational. They were not a good coworker. Maybe they were not a good boss or a leader. Maybe they were not somebody that could be relied upon to do the things that they were given. Maybe they always had an excuse, or there are just certain things about some people that they're just okay employees. They're just average employees. And average employees are fine, but if you want to leave well, be an excellent employee. Again, the goal of leaving well is being somebody who they wish wasn't leaving, who they would gladly with open arms invite you to come back, who they may even try to get you to come back because they want you that much. And so that's only going to happen if you've put in the time and the effort to be a good employee throughout the time that you're there. And if you feel like you're just an average employee, as you're planning your transition out, be a good employee, be a better employee, be an employee that knocks their socks off. It's some things, that you might work in an industry where you've got certain numbers that you've got to reach, and there's just no way necessarily for you to be a better employee in production, that's fine. But be a better employee in your relationships. Be a better employee in your attitude. It is amazing how often we complain to one another in the workplace, and having somebody who is not a complainer, who is a problem solver, who is excited, who is encouraging, is rare, unfortunately. And so if you are that type of person, if you work yourself into being that type of person, if you are an excellent employee now, then that transition is going to be so much easier. We've had people leave, and the conversation with the boss was very smooth and very amicable, and obviously we didn't want them to go, but everything works much more easier in that process if you're a good employee. Even in layoffs are hard, because I've got a whole video series on layoffs, but the people laying you off probably are not the ones making the decision to lay you off. And they probably don't want to lay you off. And it's a very emotional, it's a very even physically taxing process to go through to lay people off. But if you're a really good employee, it makes it even harder. And obviously it's going to make it harder for them to let you go just from a productivity standpoint. But that's what we need. We need people who don't just leave professionally, who don't just transition in a helpful manner. You need to be a good employee now. When you get your job, your first job, you need to be a good employee from day one. You need to find out what their expectations are and meet those expectations or exceed those expectations. The very best way to leave a company well is to be a good employee now. And unfortunately, most of us don't think about that. We think about being professional and we think about being helpful when the time comes for us to transition, but we don't think about how our reputation throughout the time of our employment may affect that process. So let's see here. That is true, Ming. You are trading your labor for money. Um, that is a very business-like way of looking at it. I think I would encourage you with this. That would be great if all you're doing is coming into a manufacturing plant, doing five things the same way for 8 hours and walking out. Um, in our line of work, we typically build relationships. We build relationships with coworkers. We build relationships with our leadership, potentially with clients. We build relationships with the QA department. um, while we do spend a lot of time on our own writing code, we also spend a lot of time communicating. Um, and I would say that while it is technically true that you are trading your time for money, how you treat people and how you interact with people makes a difference. It makes a difference in how the company views you. It makes a difference in how your fellow employees or coworkers view you. You know, there may be a point in time where you work with someone, and later on, they work in a different company in a position where they have the ability to decide whether or not you should be hired. And everything's well and good to talk about it being just a business until you've treated somebody poorly and they have the power to keep you out of a job simply out of spite. And as much as I would like to say that doesn't happen, it does. It absolutely does. Um, I actually had, when I lost my first job, we had a time where we had hired several contractors, and they were contractors, so they knew it wasn't a permanent position. They came in, they did some work, moved on. And through a recruiter, I got a part-time gig um, for just a couple months working for a company. And when I got there, they had gone through a recruiting company, so I really didn't know necessarily who was involved in that company, that new company. Um, when I got to the job the first day, one of the employees there was one of the contractors that had worked under me at my last job. And he was the one that was in charge of the work that I was going to be doing. So we literally had a role switch there. But what's interesting is the conversation that I had with him when he was telling me about the process of bringing people in to help work on this project that I was working on. He literally said to me, I was going through the resumes that the recruiter sent over, and I saw your name, and I said, that one. That's the one I want. And while obviously he knew my skill set, he knew my ability, and this is, again, I'm not just trying to pat myself on the back. I'm trying to give an example. All right. We had developed enough of a relationship that he knew the type of person that I was, the type of worker that I was. And when he saw I was available, I was the one that he wanted. I was his boss to some degree at our last encounter. And yet here we are switched roles in this short-term encounter. And the reputation that I had with him impacted whether or not I got that opportunity. So yes, from a very technical standpoint, they are paying you for your time. And at the end of the day, a lot of times from a business standpoint, that's all that matters. But the reality is we work with people. And working with people means that we need to be conscious of how we interact with those people, and what type of an employee and what type of a coworker we are from day one. And if we evaluate ourselves and we're maybe not doing well, change. Become a better employee and become a better coworker, because you never know what those relationships, what doors those relationships are going to open or close in the future. There are people I would never hire that I've worked with in the past. And that's because of the way that the type of employee that they were, or the way that they interacted with other people. Um, I just would never hire them, no matter how good they are at their job. Um, so it's not just a money in, money out production process. We are very much social people, and we're very much interactive people, and that has consequences for our future. So the best thing that you can do to leave well, yes, transition helpfully, yes, resign professionally, but the best thing that you can do is right now be an excellent employee. All right, there's more chatter. Let me check. Let me check the chatter. Let's see. Um, Mel says, "What if you want to leave because most of your team has been laid off and you feel demotivated and stressed with the extra workload, or just because you think the company won't last?" Those are all valid reasons to leave. Um, I mean, I don't know that I would necessarily say all those things in an exit interview. I would maybe couch those things a little differently. Just, you know, I kind of see the writing on the wall. It feels like there's probably not going to be a place for me here in the future. So that's why I've resigned. You can talk. I think the stress level is very valid, that you've taken on oftentimes two, even three times the amount of workload, depending on where you're working and what you're doing, because people have been let go. Your workload has increased, and there's been no, especially if over time there's been nothing to mitigate that, either in the realm of a pay raise or the realm of hiring more people to take that load on. Um, yeah, I mean, I think those are all valid reasons to leave. I think it's just a matter of finding a way to share those reasons, if you're comfortable with it, in a professional way, in a way that doesn't complain and doesn't blame, but makes it clear that it's part of what has impacted your decision to move on. So I think those are all perfectly valid. I think I would be careful in how I state that if I offer reasons. And again, you don't necessarily have to offer reasons. Just because they ask you why you're leaving doesn't mean you have to tell them. You can simply say, "I just feel like this is a better opportunity for me." Unless there's a law where you live that I don't know about, you're not required to tell them why you're leaving. I don't think you're even required to tell them where you're going. But again, some of that comes back to, well, are you somebody who wants to leave well? I think relationally, unless there's a reason why it should be kept secret, relationally, I think that's good to share those things if you can, if you feel comfortable with that. Ian says, "Sometimes after a layoff, work gets better." I got to figure out where you've worked, Ian, because I have never had that happen. Every time after a layoff for me, it's when other people get laid off. It's just more work for me. I guess the only reason that I could think that would happen is if they're getting laid off because the work is gone. That could be part of it. So maybe that was the situation. I don't know. That's a good question, Mel. If you do care about the company and the people there, how can you leave knowing it's going to cause them problems? Um, I think it comes down to priorities and being willing to recognize that everyone's going to have different priorities and that you need to set your own priorities. For me, priority number one from a job standpoint is my family. That includes the ability to earn enough income. That includes time to be able to do the things that I need to do with my family. That includes not being so stressed out that I can't, manage my family and the things that need to get done there. Um, Family is number one because I'm a father and a husband. I've got people depending on me. So for me, top priority is family. And if the job that I currently have is hurting that, then I need to find another solution. That doesn't mean that I hate the people that I'm leaving. That doesn't mean I don't feel sorry for the people that I'm leaving. But that's number one, right? So I think at the end of the day, if your health might be more important, your mental health, your physical health might be more important priority wise than the success of that company. That doesn't mean you hate them. That doesn't mean you want them to fail. It just means you have different priorities than theirs, which you probably should. So I think it's important to recognize that there are priorities in the decisions that you make. That's the same about every decision that we make. Um, we're all going to have specific priorities and reasons why we make the decisions that we make. And I would not necessarily say, I would say don't necessarily feel sorry for that. Just recognize it and understand that those priorities are going to impact leaving a job that you maybe even like, but isn't doing what you need it to do. So it's not easy. It's not fun. But I think when you look at things from a priority perspective, it does make it a little bit easier to deal with the shock and the relationship factors of leaving a job. So I would look at it through that lens myself. That's a good, interesting statement, Mel. I really want the first company I work for to be one I want to succeed. Um, there is obviously the opportunity at times where the only opportunity to get a job is with a company you wouldn't necessarily want to work for long term. But I would say if unless that is necessary, I would just do a lot of work researching, asking questions to find out if that is a company that you uh, want to succeed and want to be a part of. Think unless you have to take a job, don't take a job that doesn't fit that requirement. You know. Now again, you just may have to do it because you need the income. I get that. We all, again, it comes back to priorities, right? So you have a priority of providing for yourself and for your family, and sometimes you just take a job because you need to. um, I've done that. I've taken jobs with companies where I didn't know hardly anything about them, but I needed a job. um, and I didn't really necessarily care while I worked there if they succeeded or not. So that does happen. Um, but if you can, take the time and evaluate and figure out if that is a company that you want to work for. So, because it'll definitely make it easier to deal with some of the normal problems that you have at any job if it's a company that you want to be a part of. Uh, that's a good point, Ian. He says he worked at a number of different startups. Sometimes a layoff got rid of dead weight. Typically, those are the first people to go in layoff situations. Everybody knows generally who the dead weight is. Um, Leadership does know. It's just a matter of whether or not they can or should move on from them. And sometimes layoffs are a way to do that without having to. Employment law is so crazy. It's very difficult sometimes to get rid of bad employees, depending on the labor laws and things like that. So, um, yeah, sometimes the company you work for, layoffs are unfortunately used as a good way to get rid of dead weight, people who aren't good employees or who aren't pulling their weight in the process. Yeah, that's an interesting experience, Ming. Talking about a toxic environment and um, HR causing you to be let go even though your manager didn't want to. Um, that's basically what happened in my first job. I found out probably over a year afterwards that the only reason why I was let go was because the owner of the company, or I should say the main reason, um, I'm sure there were financial reasons as well, but the main reason why I was on the chopping block had nothing to do with my performance or my relationship with people. It was that the owner would come in early in the morning. I would often be there early in the morning and see him. I was often there before he was. Um, and at the end of the day, around 4 or 5, he would walk around the office and take note of who was not still in the office. And because I came in early at 7, I would leave around 3:30, latest 4 o'clock. Part of that was to avoid traffic. It was a bit of a drive for me. Um, Part of it was because we actually had a policy, a work from home policy that should have allowed me to do that regardless, as long as my manager was okay with it, which he was. And so when I heard that, it first of all made me angry, and then it made me laugh, um, at the type of person that would do that. um, that's just, again, that's somebody that I would never work for again. After knowing that, I don't care how much he pays me. You can't pay me enough to go back and work for somebody who is that poor of a management style. So yeah, sometimes getting laid off is actually a good thing. It pushes you to new career paths, new opportunities, and it gets you out of toxic environments that you may not even know exist. So there you go. I don't know if I've heard him say that, but I certainly would think that's something that he would say. The Prime Engine says, "If you don't know who the weak dev is, you're the weak dev." that's that's pretty true. It's kind of like in board games. If you don't know whose turn it is, it's your turn, because you're not paying attention. That's funny. Oh man. All right, so those are just some thoughts, hopefully helpful, hopefully maybe some things to jog your thought process if you're coming up on an opportunity to leave or thinking about leaving, whether it's a development job or some other job. um, Hopefully that gives you some more things to think about and consider how you can do that well. Great feedback, Ian, especially, and others, and some things that I hadn't put on my list specifically, but great feedback. If you have any other ideas or feedback of ways that you can leave a company well, leave them in the comment section if you've happened to watch this long, or put them in the Discord channel. I'd love to get more feedback on these things, especially when I just spend a bunch of time talking about my opinions on things. So certainly feel free to share yours, share your anecdotes and experiences, share your helpful tidbits of leaving well. But again, for me, it's about resigning professionally. It's about transitioning helpfully, and it's about being an excellent employee. Now, those are kind of the three main topics for me. And if you can do that, you can leave even a bad company well, and a company you may never ever want to work for again, and they could want you back. um, and really, that's the goal. The goal is to leave in such a way that the door is always open, and maybe even them chasing you down in the not too distant future to get you to come back. So that is what leaving well looks like. It should be called the Dev Mentor Dave Show instead. Well, it's already called Dev Mentor Dave. I don't know if you just mean like since we're Deep Pockets is the name of the live stream. I don't know. Again, we will have the new live stream starting Tuesday. It'll be every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 p.m. So it'll be during a lunch-ish hour for me. Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. Central United States time. And that'll be the title is the LinkedIn Lunch. We'll be going through LinkedIn, looking at advice and posts and things for junior developers, and giving my perspective and my feedback on those as to whether or not I agree with them, or whether or not you should listen to them. And of course, you can take my information with a grain of salt as well. Maybe a very large one, maybe a massive tablet of salt. All right, because I certainly don't know everything, and we'll probably run into some things that I've never heard of, and we'll run into some things that I'm going to learn along the way with you in that process. But if you do have people that you think I should follow on that profile, or if you have specific links in LinkedIn that you think I should take a look at and include in that LinkedIn lunch live stream. Hey, look at that, 3 L's, LinkedIn lunch live stream. Then send those to me via the Slack channel, or not Slack channel, via the Discord channel. So many applications. Send them to me via the Discord channel, and I'll get those added to my list of things to start looking at on Tuesday. I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye. We got about 10 minutes left if we wanted to, but I think I'm going to go ahead and cut off. There you go, Mel. I figured for a lot of you all that are on the live stream are overseas, so I know that's not going to be a perfect time for you guys. But yeah, have your lunch with them later on. And again, the goal is to keep them within that 1 hour period. So, because I have work to do too. So, again, reasons behind that. It saves me time to do a live stream because I can just fit it in that 1 hour. Don't have to do editing and things like that. And it'll give us some more content for the channel, and hopefully more help for you guys along the way. So thanks everybody for jumping on the live stream. Thanks for hanging with me. We will have some more designs up and tickets created this week. We'll jump back into the Deep Pockets project full steam ahead next Saturday, looking at any PRs that might be available, as well as looking at the designs that we have at that point. And then the future work, the tickets that we'll have ready. So we'll jump back into that project, jump back into some more Q&A. So if you have questions, get them ready for next Saturday. We'll definitely take that last hour for that for sure. Once we get through the Deep Pocket project update. Thank you. Excuse me. Now I got the hiccups. Need to get more water or coffee. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate it. It is a boon to my experience as a YouTuber, to have you guys here, to have you asking questions, to feel like I'm helpful. So thank you, even if I'm not, thank you for making me feel like I'm helpful. So have a great day or night or sleep or whatever it is for you. And I'll see you all on Tuesday or later if you have to watch the video.